Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I know recently we started talking about like green investing and stuff like that, and someone asked me, you know, is it, when it comes to investing, are there ethics? So well, let's look into it. Like, are there ethics in investing? What are they? What are the different things? Because dictionaries list several different definitions for the word ethics, right? But the main one is a system of moral principles, and a secondary definition is that ethics are the rules of conduct as used by a specific group or culture. Now, the last one is going to be a branch of philosophy dealing with values relating to human conduct with respect to the right and wrong of certain actions and their respective motives and consequences. So, the proper application of ethics to investment is going to be very subjective, right? And it can raise some difficult questions for people who invest and, people who are a part of regulatory agencies, right? But it does bring up the question of why business ethics are important. Let's start off with the ethics puzzle, right? Because although the definition of ethical investing could be stated as simply purchasing investments from issuers who act ethically, investors who seek to achieve this must first establish a set of criteria that can be used to determine what actions and practices are actually considered ethical to them. So, for example, the Bible and other religious books provide rules and principles for people to live by, and those who believe what those books say use them as guides to evaluate things in the world around them. Religious texts and other moral teachings, however, do not always provide crystal clear guidance for practical investment decisions. Although creating or finding the ethical criteria to use as the basis for evaluating investments may often be fairly simple, effectively applying that criteria to actual investment choices can be more difficult. For instance, we talked about the Bible, right? Well, the Bible condemns, drunkenness in several passages, but does that make it unconditionally wrong to purchase securities issued by makers of alcoholic beverages? Since not all consumers of alcohol get drunk, then the investor will have to decide for him or herself whether this investment truly supports immoral behavior. Virtually all issuers of securities or investments most likely do something that at least a substantial percentage of their investors don't approve of. Now, how many investors who buy treasury securities approve of everything that's done by the government, right? But of course, this is going to beg the question of which practices and policies are tolerable for investors and which are not. So let's talk about some of these ethical issues then. Because, the values and beliefs that guide ethically minded investors differ somewhat for each person. There's going to be several specific areas where ethics play a major role. Some of the more notable issues that investors can examine, come from, whatever their ethical standpoint is going to be. We're going to go over just a handful of them real quick, right? So the first one I want to talk about is winning at someone else's expense. Now, there will be, there's inevitably going to be both winners and losers in a free market economy. That's just how it works. The issue of how a company wins is a concern to some. Now, companies that have monopolies in a market or industry can function very efficiently in many respects, right? Still, they also effectively prevent any form of healthy business competition, and some investors consider this to be unethical. The next one to talk about is environmental responsibility. Heavy industry, such as energy and manufacturing, have long been perceived as destroyers of nature and wildlife with their pollution and decimation of forests, oceans, lakes, rivers, and all that. Ethical investors favor companies that replace what they take from the earth and adhere to governmental standards for emissions. Another one to talk about is going to be abortion and stem cell research. Companies that profit from certain medical, procedures or types of research are often considered to be unethical or even criminal by those in Judeo-Christian community, right? One of the one of the big ones to talk about, which you're going to hear a bunch after coming a few weeks, is going to be what's called sin industries, right? Although the concept of an industry being sinful is, obviously somewhat subjective, a portion of the investing public still considers makers of alcoholic beverages, tobacco, casino, pornography, and stuff like that, all these to be taboo. The tobacco industry, for instance, has long been accused of targeting teenagers as customers and making its product as addictive as possible to fuel sales. Now, while sin industries have made efforts to raise public awareness of the dangers of misusing their products and services, some investors may choose to avoid companies that operate in these industries. Another thing to talk about is going to be socially conscious investing. I'm going to give a brief one on this in this video, and later on, we're going to get into a little more deeper into this one. Many investors who seek to avoid what they consider to be unethical investments look to vehicles such as socially conscious, like mutual funds, that screen companies according to specific ethically based criteria. Many such funds are offered by religious denominations such as the Lutheran Brotherhood, which typically avoids investing in any of the sin industries that we just talked about, right? And they can provide investors with a clear conscience in this area. Some other things, other considerations, of course, the ability of investors to make informed ethical choices is going to be dampened by the quality of information that you get. All right, as an example, the accuracy of emissions and other environmental reports that are issued by major conglomerates, say like Exxon, they might be a little iffy, right? And the data published by other companies such as Enron and WorldCom that were found guilty of major accounting fraud was false, right? So, what's the bottom line here? Like, what are we talking about? Well, ethics are morally subjective by nature, right? And there is no absolute standard for what is or is not an ethical investment. Now, investors must ultimately decide for themselves what they consider to be ethical, right? And then after you decide that, then you want to try to apply that to your investment choices. So, as I've said before, right? However you want to do your investing, make sure you do what's right for you, right? Make sure you guys are doing your research. And then after you do your research and you understand what you're investing in, that's when you want to move forward, right? So do your research, then do your investing. I just want you guys to be as comfortable as you can be when you're putting your money to work for you, right? I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot out of it. I'm going to be doing a few more on, ethics and green investing and all that good stuff. I've had a couple people ask for it. And so, if you guys like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed already, I'd really appreciate it if you did subscribe. But until I see you guys in the next video, y'all be safe.